So I got this email trying to convince me that reincarnation is real, and it's so weird that I can't help but respond. Now, if it were a comment, I probably wouldn't make a video, but this person thought this was so critical for me to know that they put the effort into tracking down my email address to send it to me personally. So I feel that I really should take it seriously as well, and reply to it properly in a video. It begins,
I am a great proponent of science, and especially enjoy studying evolution by natural selection, which is, in my opinion, the greatest scientific idea ever envisaged by humanity. Recently, I ascertained the truth of reincarnation of the spirit. The absolute truth. And I claim that without reincarnation of the spirit, the scientific study of evolutionary biology would certainly be false.
So, we have a new believer in reincarnation, which apparently is the absolute truth, whatever that means. You would think maybe there'd be some mechanism by which reincarnation occurs, and that would be the absolute truth? Or maybe the more fundamental principles by which that mechanism operates, maybe those would be the absolute truth? Or the logical absolutes those principles have to follow, or so on down the line. But no, apparently reincarnation of the spirit is the absolute truth. I feel like I'm supposed to say it that way because it's capitalized like that. I think just saying the absolute truth wouldn't do it justice. It's the absolute truth. Anyway, apparently if reincarnation isn't true, then the entire field of evolutionary biology would be false, for some reason. By which I think they mean evolution can't happen.
I know. Very bold claim.
Very bold indeed. But this email is at least 500 words long, which is more than enough space to back that up.
And I will prove it to you in this email if you only open your mind enough to see the inherent beity of monistic metaphysics.
Oh, my mind's very open to seeing beity. I like beautiful things. But, you know, if you're trying to prove something to me, I'm considerably less interested in the inherent beauty of it than I am in the inherent truth of it.
Now, the word reincarnation and the word soul are loaded words, and because I don't like to use language associated with religious nonsense, since I would need to dispel all the absurd myths of creationism, for example, design, purpose, meaning.
No, you wouldn't. The mere existence of souls and reincarnation would not imply design, nor would it imply an externally imposed purpose or meaning. They'd just be interesting facts about the universe, which we'd need to explain scientifically. But you just said a couple of sentences back that you were trying to demonstrate the reincarnation of spirits, so clearly you don't have that much of a problem using those kind of words. And you already said that reincarnation and spirit is what you meant, so whatever other word you choose is just going to be some other way of saying the same thing. So why bother? It's not going to make this any more palatable. If you want to obfuscate, you have to do it right from the start.
I like to use words with scientific significance, like my favorite in biology, palingenesis, meaning the exact reproduction of ancestral characteristics in ontogenesis.
Well, palingenesis, as it's used in biology, is just a fancy way to refer to recapitulation theory, which is the idea that an embryo develops through stages representing its evolutionary history, or in other words, that ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny, which, aside from not actually being true, also does not refer to a spirit being reincarnated into a new body. But the word has been around for many centuries longer than modern biology has, and it's been used in a number of different ways, including literal rebirth. So, if I were to jump to a conclusion based on what you've said so far, I'd guess that you're most likely planning to conflate the biological usage with a specific theological usage, and pretend that the failed demonstration of the biological one proves the totally undemonstrated theological one, despite the concepts being completely different and totally unrelated.
So if we redefine reincarnation as palingenesis,
You mean relabel?
You might easily see that the truth is right in front of your eyes and seldom appreciated by pesky humans.
Yeah, those pesky humans always questioning whether slapping a new label on something really alters the truth or falsehood of the concept the label refers to. Why can't they just cut that out and buy whatever I'm selling? No, since you've just told me that by palingenesis you mean the exact same thing as reincarnation, I think I'll just stick with reincarnation, thanks.
One of the questions humans like to wonder about, not sure about all humans, but the question is there life after death? Of course there is. Every normal human knows that when others die, or at the moment of death, is always followed by life that contemplates its future demise, while at the same time living on to tell the story.
Yes? When a person dies, other people still exist who might contemplate their future demise and live on to tell the story, but that's not life after death, that's life before death. Those other people haven't died yet.
The individual bodies were extinguished, but not the actual spirit or soul.
Oh, okay. So you don't mean every normal human knows other people live on to contemplate their future demise and tell the tale after someone else dies. You actually mean every normal human knows that a person who just died lives on to contemplate their future demise and tell the tale, because their spirit or soul lives on. Weird, I thought you didn't like the word soul, but okay. You have a very interesting idea of what a normal person is, if you think every normal person thinks that. Personally, even if I believed that a body releases a soul after it dies, I wouldn't assume it's going to spend its time contemplating its future demise. Its body just died, and presumably the soul won't have a future demise. So why would it contemplate it? And also, I'm not familiar with any instance of a dead person's soul telling a story. Apparently, you've encountered that a lot because you seem to think it's fairly obvious.
By the way, a perfect aneology for the spirit is, in my humble opinion, a flame. Light, fire, electricity, magnetism are all phenomena that inhere in the same natural force, i.e. electromagnetic radiation!
No, the force is called the electromagnetic force, not electromagnetic radiation, but sure, the things you mention all have some connection to that force. It's kind of weird that you tossed fire in with light, electricity, and magnetism, but I'm not really into questioning your reasoning too strongly on that. But see, now you're getting kind of confusing. See, there's no indication at all that light, fire, electricity, or magnetism contain thoughts, personalities, memories, or anything else that would define a person. But I'm jumping the gun. I'd better let you finish your analogy.
We can do a vivid scientific experiment with 2 candles to demonstrate what is meant by this self or soul that is not myself and not my soul.
That's a weird way to phrase it, but I'll try to help you out since it's fairly obvious that you're not a native English speaker. I think what you're trying to say is the flame represents a soul in the analogy, but it's not supposed to literally be a soul. And to explain your analogy, you're going to imagine doing something with 2 candles. Hopefully that's in about the right ballpark.
In the experiment, if we put a candle in each one of our arms and light the first candle with a match and then move it to the other one and set it on fire too, when we separate them again and extinguish the first candle, we didn't really kill the flame, only transferred it to the other candle. What was actually transferred from one candle to the other? Energy, of course.
Yes, I agree completely. You can light one candle by taking a lit candle and using the flame to transfer heat energy to the wick of the candle you want to light. Absolutely. Of course, that doesn't imply that you can transfer consciousness between living beings the same way you can transfer flame between candles, and even if you can, it doesn't imply that the universe is doing that. And as a matter of fact, if you have 2 separate flames going on 2 separate candles, it doesn't matter where the flame came from in the first place. If you blow out one of the candles, you've extinguished a flame. There are 2 separate reactions happening in 2 separate places.
I therefore conclude that energy is this self that is not myself.
Okay, translating that back to how I tried to represent it, so therefore you conclude that the flame itself, which represents a soul within your analogy, but isn't actually a soul, is itself made of energy. I disagree, actually. You can certainly conclude that a flame can result from energy transfer, but that alone does not imply that the flame itself is energy. And, in fact, it isn't. The heat and light emitted by it are, sure, but the flame itself is mostly a mixture of gases and plasma. But okay, it's a chemical reaction that results in the release of energy.
In other words, the impersonal self, the witness itself.
I have absolutely no idea what that's supposed to mean.
If we accept this argument...
Wait a minute. You mean accept the analogy? Because you can make an argument by analogy, but you didn't.
If we accept this analogy, we must also derive the truth that there is no you inside your head.
No. The fact that you can light a candle with another candle says nothing about how human consciousness works. Nothing at all. You have to actually investigate the human mind to understand the human mind. You can't just argue by analogy. And by the way, transferring flames back and forth between candles is not a good analogy for the human mind. And I'll assert that until you can demonstrate that by touching a live human brain to a dead one, you can transfer consciousness into the dead one. Which I don't think you've done. But okay, there's no you inside your head, and so...
You are the brain activity and everything around it. In other words, your mind is what the whole universe does in the place and time we call here and now.
Yeah, pretty much. Everything that you consider you is a process, a movement of matter and energy in your physical brain. And with that being the case, then the concept of a soul, which is a definite you inside your head, unbound by the material goings-on within your brain, and which survives the destruction of your brain to be poured into another vessel, another body, is both absurd and unnecessary. Thank you for suddenly coming out and stating that. It seems kind of like the opposite of what you were trying to demonstrate, but okay.
However, the station, the actual physical brain, only senses a fragment of the electromagnetic spectrum. We can detect these invincibles, naked eye, photons, with delicate instruments, so we know they are real.
Yeah, humans have limited senses, and therefore, what? Your previous statement is still true, and so the concept of a soul is still totally unnecessary based on your own reasoning. Or I should say based on your own statement. You didn't provide any reasoning for that. And you've still completely undermined what you set out to prove. And you still haven't said anything about a person's soul living on to be transplanted into a new body after they die, or about why evolution can't be true if that's not true, or even about anything related to the biological usage of the word palingenesis. So, I'm a little confused as to what your plan is here.
So we celebrate that existence is, and news does.
Hey, I might have no idea what you're babbling about at this point, but I'll take any excuse for a celebration. You get the burgers, I'll get the beer, and we'll celebrate existence news doesing all night long.
I hope this email helps you understand the ancient monistic perspective on how to render the universe sensible.
Nope! That just rendered the universe much more confusing, because now I have to figure out why there are people who think like this in it.
Anyway, looking forward from hearing from you.
Happy to hear it. Hopefully you like my response, and hopefully you'll read my comments as well. Maybe someone in there will be able to better puzzle out what you were trying to say and respond to it more thoroughly. To me, it seems like you were trying to weave a complex tapestry of thought, but every time you started weaving, you just kind of left the thread dangling in the breeze. So by the end, you basically just had a few strings flapping around in the dirt. It's too bad, because I was really looking forward to your explanation of why if reincarnation isn't true, then evolution also isn't true. I thought that would be really interesting. No luck. Now, you did include a fragment of an essay from some guy at the end of your email, but it's a similarly garbled mess, albeit in fancier language, and I'd just be repeating myself if I addressed it, so I'll chuck it up here on the screen, and my audience can have their fun picking it apart if they like. Thank you, random viewer, for your thoughtful email. For all my other random viewers, if you like my channel, consider supporting me on Patreon. My Patreon people are very much appreciated, every single one of you. And if you want to see more, then subscribe and thumb up the video, and I'll see you soon.